four Western governments and the European Union announced last year at the COP26 meeting that $8.5 billion would be made available to accelerate South Africa's energy transition. Now, since then, there's no clarity about where the funds are or what they can be used for. Let's get the latest now from the co-director of the Center for Sustainability Transitions at the Stellenbosch University. That's Professor Mark Swilling. Prof, good morning to you. You wrote this piece at some point, and the heading is exactly what I've just read in that introduction, where you asked the question, $8.5 billion that South Africa was promised at COP26. Where is it? I put that question to you.
Well, that's the big question. So everybody got excited. Key people in the financial sector kind of wrote op-eds around, well, if this is grant money, then we can raise hundreds of billions off it. So there was a lot of excitement, kind of focusing attention. You know, we as a country we suffer from attention deficit syndrome, so this kind of helped us focus. But it's not clear where it is and how it's going to materialize. And that's the significance of the appointment of Daniel Manelli by the President to head up a task team to kind of answer this question. Yeah.
Prof, I would hate to conflate issues here, but at the moment, the entire Europe is seized with the matter of Russia invading Ukraine. And coincidentally, this week, the UN General Assembly had to vote on a resolution for Russia to stop its attacks on Ukraine and go to the negotiating table. What did South Africa do during that meeting? Well, we decided to abstain from voting. Might this decision be a factor when the European countries that promised these funds decide that, you know what, South Africa, you let us down at a critical time in history, and you have to pay the price?
That is a tricky question. What we can be absolutely certain of is that as a result of this war, the attention of Western governments is not focused on South Africa and is not focused on working out the details of an $8.5 billion funding package to accelerate our transition at the southern tip of Africa, when Europe is fighting the biggest land war since the Second World War. So, yeah, I think we're going to suffer the consequences of a deflection of attention. However, this might be an opportunity, which is something I signaled in that Daily Maverick article, which is maybe this creates an opportunity for us to determine the terms of engagement rather than waiting for the Western governments to get their act together and present us with a fait accompli.
Yeah. Prof, where are we, therefore, in this whole discussion of the just energy transition? And I ask you this on the back of a meeting that took place in Europe not so long ago, which was attended by our President and indeed his Minister of International Relations, where the discussions around the just energy transition were also part and parcel of the agenda. Where are we as far as these discussions are concerned?
Well, I mean, I think we're the only country in the world that has a structure like the Presidential Climate Commission, which conducts its activities and dialogues in the public domain. Anyone can access these meetings and see the conversation taking place between ministers, commissioners, and experts that are presenting. So it's very transparent, the state of the dialogue. And in summary, basically where we are is that we have a bunch of coal-fired power stations that are too old and need to be shut down. We're not going to be able to raise the money to build new ones. And even if we did, it's going to take too long. So the only technology that can deliver large amounts of energy very quickly, within 2 or 3 years, is renewables, namely solar and wind power. And to their credit, the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy has actually promulgated a series of measures which is going to result in massive build-out of renewables in the next 2 or 3 years. Basically, we've taken 10 years to build about 60 gigawatts of energy, and we're going to take 2 or 3 years to build a similar amount. Yeah. So we are actually accelerating the just transition. The debate is whether we still need to build some coal. Some people still think so, but nobody knows where we get the money. And there's obviously Minister Gwede Mantashe's view that nuclear has a role to play.
Sure. And Prof, the reason I asked you this question about where are we in this debate around the just energy transition, it was opportunistic because I noticed, or should I say, I listened with an even more critical ear at the EU summit, which took place in where was this country now? It was some time ago, but it was in Europe. I forget the country, Prof. And these were the words of the President at that summit, particularly around the issue of climate change and just energy transition. I want to quote his words directly. There can be no one-size-fits-all approach to complex issues such as energy transition. And this is due to the very different national circumstances and capacities of countries. I then put it to the Minister of International Relations, Naledi Pandor, whether the President made a case there specifically for South Africa to continue the use of coal. And she corrected me to say, actually, the discussion was about the gas, the availability of gas that is being discovered all over Africa as well, and that is to do with how countries should handle the just energy transition. So I don't know what you make of these comments, Prof. Perhaps you are better placed to give us a succinct picture of what the President's words mean, not just for our country, but the continent as well.
Yeah, I mean, the notion that that one size doesn't fit all is an important principle, because it basically means we need to look at what is specific to our context and what works here. So the bottom line is that we have some of the best wind and very best solar resources in the world. These are our resources, just as much as they are coal are our resources. And we have an obligation to use them and mobilize them. We don't have a lot of gas. We actually haven't found, in the South African context and offshore, large quantities of gas. If we built a gas infrastructure, we would be dependent on gas, in particular from northern Mozambique, which is also the focus of a low-intensity civil war, which has repeatedly brought the gas infrastructure and production to a standstill. So we are very dependent on an unstable part of the world, which would require us and the AU to kind of make available troops and other security measures to stabilize that source of supply, which is very expensive. In any case, we still have to do a build-out of the gas infrastructure. And it's true, there's a lot of favorable views of gas, and we will need gas as backup for a renewables-based grid, definitely. But that cannot be seen as an excuse to then use gas as baseload in order to become an alternative to coal. It is now absolutely clear that renewables plus backup, which can be gas and battery storage, is where the rest of the world is going. Exactly what the combination is country specific. And that's what the President was talking about. We need to determine the terms, not get dictated to from the outside, which is the exact point of my article.
Sure. I cannot miss the opportunity then, Professor Swilling, to ask you the question around the Minister of Energy's views when it comes to gas exploration. He has been very angry, I think, to put it mildly, about the chasing away of exploration in the country. And he says that the efforts of those who stand against these explorations are actually, quote-unquote, anti-developmental. He says there's an anti-developmental agenda. Are we being short-sighted, particularly the environmentalist activists, when they chase away the companies like Shell, for example, from doing this exploration?
Well, I don't think it's a fair characterization to say they chased away the oil companies. What happened was that the oil companies and the DMRE did not play according to the rules, and the court confirmed that and basically said, play according to the rules and you can come back. And that's really all that the environmental achieved. By saying, listen, ignore the fact that we're not playing according to the rules because this is in our best interest, is the thin end of the wedge for the kinds of practices that we saw during the state capture years. We cannot do that. We must play according to our own rules. That said, it needs to also be recognized that it's going to take many, many, many years to build the kind of gas infrastructure that is envisaged by those who think it can be a general solution. By then, the rest of the world would have moved away from gas and moved into green hydrogen. Green hydrogen is making gas from water using renewables to electrolyze the H2O molecule to release the hydrogen. That's where the rest of the world is going when it comes to gas. If we build a gas infrastructure that can be converted to green hydrogen, then yeah, to use the phrase, we're cooking with gas. But we need to be careful that that's not used as an excuse for create a new addiction, which is long-term gas contracts. And gas is traded in dollars. It's very volatile, as we've seen. And do we want to dollarize our economy by being addicted to gas bought in dollars? And those who defend gas as our resources that we need to exploit, the bottom line is we're not going to be exploiting it. The international gas companies that will do it, and we'll have to buy it in dollars.
Professor Mark Swilling, thank you very much, as always, for clarifying these issues, putting it in layman's terms. He is co-director of the Center for Sustainability Transitions at the Stellenbosch University.